Hey there, lady. My name is Molly Conley, and I'm devoted to helping ambitious women overcome sabotaging behaviors so they can reinvent their love lives. Why? Because I've been there. I'm a former college athlete who filed for divorce 3 years into marriage, swam in the online dating pool in my late 30s, and now I'm married to the man of my spreadsheet dreams who I met 4 months before the world shut down. As a dating and relationship coach, my goal is to help you take my lessons and turn them into your successes. Each week, I'll bring you love life insights and savvy guests where you will receive the courage to release dating patterns, discover your sabotaging behaviors, and ways to choose yourself first so you can build a foundation for a healthy relationship with yourself and a partner. Hey there, lady. I'm Molly, and you're listening to the Reinventing the Arena podcast. And if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. So, this episode is part 2 of What Are Your Dating Patterns? If you haven't already, go back and listen to part 1, which is episode 28. I decided to make this a 2-part series for a few reasons. Some of them are pretty typical ways people handle relationships. Others were behaviors that are typically found like in your career. But from what I have learned from my clients, ambitious women, they can also show up in their relationships. So today, the episode I'm going to be sharing 4 dating patterns that I see with my clients, as well as 7 self sabotaging behaviors that can be associated with these dating patterns or even associated with another sabotaging behavior, and then examples about like how they show up in your life. Okay, so for those of you who haven't listened to part 1 and are still listening to this episode, let me tell you a little bit about self-sabotaging. When you're self-sabotaging, you are meeting a need. It is keeping you in a so-called comfortable pattern. And, that's more than likely similar to a relationship you might have experienced when you were younger. And it becomes a way for you to feel safe, secure, loved, important, or any other emotion that really drives you. And sometimes we get attached to these behaviors as a way to solve a problem or keep us feeling safe. So, recognizing your behaviors will help you to start uncovering why it's there in the first place. As for dating patterns, I'm sharing the dating patterns that are not good for you. And I'm refraining from using the word toxic because I personally feel it's overused and it does not apply to some of these situations. I want to give you a broad view of what these dating patterns are, and I want to include how they show up in your long term relationships, even marriage. So think of the last 3 men you either went on dates with or had relationships with. What were some of their similarities? What were some of the common problems? So, dating pattern number 1 is that you date similar men with different faces. Basically, they have similar qualities and maybe even physical characteristics. So, the relationships end up having the same problems. I feel like this one's pretty self explanatory. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to number 2. So, like, if for some reason that's not what you've experienced, maybe you fall into this one: dating people who are completely the opposite of you. The saying, in my opinion, of opposites attract is outdated. And from what I have experienced and seen with my friends, family, and client relationships, the more opposite you are, the shorter the relationship and the marriage. So, more than likely, if you fall into this dating pattern, you probably have felt bored in your relationships and you either have nothing in common that you share or do together, or maybe you thought dating someone similar to you would have been, worse, and your current or past relationships have been unfulfilling. All right, dating pattern number 3: you're in a one sided relationship, specifically one's focused on your partner. This dating pattern or relationship dynamic can become a real toxic and abusive relationship. So, if you're in this situation, please pay attention. When you're in this dating pattern, you always say yes to your partner, even out of obligation or habit. You sacrifice yourself for the other person to the point where you might be, taken advantage of, and your past actions can even be used against you. When friends and family call out this behavior, you make excuses of your partner to them. If you're in a relationship like this and it gets mentally, emotionally, or physically abusive, there are ways to leave the relationship safely. If the relationship is not mentally or emotionally or physically abusive, but you have emotions and thoughts like no one else will love you like they will, let me share some food for thought. Well, there's 8 billion people on this planet. And if even 1% of them liked you, that would be 80 million people. And if half of them were men, that's 40 million. So when you think of that, obviously there's other men that you can meet, date, and have a healthy, loving relationship with. You just might have to move outside of your comfort zone to find him. Okay, dating pattern number 4. You date men with potential. You say he's handsome and he treats you right, but then he goes and plays video games in his parents' basement because he hasn't moved out and he's over the age of 25. You say that he's got a really great job and loves to travel, so much so that you never see him, but you know you can get him to settle down and choose you. Basically, you are attracted to men who are not emotionally available. This can even be people like that are cheaters or narcissists. But the idea of fixing them seems romantic to you. Sometimes I find this with clients is because they want the partner to look at them as the person who saved them from this area of their life. I'm pretty passionate about this dating pattern because I was there. I was a fixer. If you do want to listen to an episode about dating potential, go back and listen to number 9, The Truth About Dating Potential. So, these are the dating relationship patterns that I've seen the most with my clients who are ambitious women. This is not an end all be all, but when other dating patterns come up, I'll make sure to share another episode. So let's get into the self sabotaging behaviors. I will say, just like the dating and relationship patterns, the sabotaging behaviors that I'm going to share are a handful. It's not all encompassing. Plus, it's perfectly normal to have more than one sabotaging behavior appear in your love life. And I have found most of my clients have one dominant behavior. And as we work together, others will start to show up. Some of the most common self sabotaging behaviors that I'm sharing will relate specifically to high achieving, ambitious women. But I know I have some men who listen to the podcast too. So I have included a few of those as well. I'm not calling out which one those are because they might all resonate with you at some point. So, self sabotaging behavior number 1, perfectionism. I'll be honest, perfectionism and the next self sabotaging behavior were my 2 dominant behaviors. So, most of the time, people who are not perfectionists don't realize that it's not always good for us. Now, there's studies that show it's good for businesses because you're a hard worker and motivated and dedicated to your work, but it's not good for a relationship of any kind. Perfectionism is connected to expectations of yourself. And if you're a hardcore perfectionist, you might not want to present what you have until you think it's perfect. Usually, this has to be like perfect the first time around to meet your expectations. So it keeps you from showing up as your authentic self and becoming a master in your life, whether that's in your career or in a relationship, because you have to fail in order to learn, grow, and succeed on your own terms. Now, you might find this in that fourth dating pattern of dating a man with potential. Why? Because you want to fix him to become the perfect man for you or who you think he could be. Self sabotaging behavior number 2, people pleasing. It's my favorite. This behavior can take a lot of awareness and inner work to really break free from. Most of the time, the people pleasing is not only in your romantic relationships, but in all of your relationships, family, friends, coworkers, bosses, you name it. People pleasing shows up especially in dating pattern number 3, where you put others' needs before your own. When you do this, you're basically teaching other people how you want to be treated. Like your needs don't matter. And over time, you can build resentment and it can come out in the next self sabotaging behavior that I'll explain. So, learning how to show others um, how you care for them while still figuring out how to make space and give love for yourself is extremely important when you're in a relationship. So, number 3 is pride. This self sabotaging behavior can show up in different ways. And I've seen this with my clients who are really struggling with another self sabotaging behavior that seems more dominant. So, for example, pride can show up with perfectionism because you always want to seem perfect or flawless. It can show up in people pleasing as a way to control how you help others and resist anyone else who offers to help. Pride is self sabotaging because you're taking into account what other people think about your life and what's not really going on. So let's say your friends think that, your current man is not good for you. You know you need to end the relationship, but you don't because you don't want your friends to be right. Or you're in a relationship and like your partner is stating a fact and you know it's a fact, but you argue anyways that he's wrong or that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Your pride is getting in the way of the relationship building from a place of authenticity, honesty, and reality. Pride can show up in the first dating pattern, especially when you date similar types of people and you look the other way when others tell you it's a bad relationship or when things aren't going as you had hoped. Sabotaging behavior number 4, justification. When you're justifying, all you're really doing is making excuses, whether that's for yourself or someone else in your life. I see this self sabotaging behavior paired up with people pleasing quite a bit, especially if the woman hasn't made, clear boundaries, communicated her needs, or shared how she really wants to be treated. So, once again, this can be a red flag for women who are in mentally, emotionally, and physically abusive relationships. But when it's not, you're making excuses to feel better about a person or a situation. And let's be honest here. If you're constantly having to make the same excuse about someone you're dating or in a relationship with, there's a problem. Justification can also lead you to say, I don't ask for much, I don't mind, I don't care, I like to be the chill, go with the flow kind of woman when you start a relationship. Here, you really need to take a look at how you're not only communicating your needs, but how you're treating yourself in these situations. Number 5, resistance. Now, you might think that this is not a behavior associated with being an ambitious, high achieving woman, but hear me out. Well, first let me explain the behavior. So, resistance self sabotages us when we have something new or amazing in our lives, but we can't get ourselves to do it or be involved. An example would be like maybe you went on this like ideal first date, but you avoid going on the second date. You resist meeting up with him. Why? It could be that you want to be cautious or you don't want to get attached right away. You want to take things slow, or even though you think and feel this man is like good and what you've been looking for. Figuring out what's bringing up the resistance, getting beyond the surface level why is an important first step. So, sabotaging behavior number 6, busyness. If you're an ambitious woman, you definitely know that there have been times in your life where you're so busy, it has distracted you from something you don't want to deal with. When you are self sabotaging yourself with being busy, you're either running away from a problem or a person, and that can include yourself. You might not want to face the truth of a situation or uncover what might be bothering you at your core. Sometimes you can become addicted to the busyness and claim it as a status, almost as if you're, too important because you're so busy. You might see this in dating when you don't know how to shift priorities in your life. You might have met someone new, but you have a high demanding job where you're used to working nights and weekends. Learning how to make space for not only a relationship, but time for yourself will be critical to having a fulfilling relationship. And last but not least, self sabotaging behavior number 7, upper limit threshold. Sometimes I see this pop up with perfectionism and some of the behaviors I shared in part one episode, and those were fear of failing and guilt of succeeding. So, hitting your upper limit is about having a threshold of the amount of good things or positive feelings like love and success that you can have in your life. This threshold sabotages us when we start to notice we have moved past our tolerance level. Sometimes I like to call this the too good to be true level. What happens is that you self sabotage yourself knowingly and knowingly back to where you feel comfortable. With perfectionism, you might dive into analysis paralysis and overthink if you've done enough. And you force those feelings of happiness, appreciation, or validation aside because you might want to operate at the level that you had been before that was striving for perfection, excuse me. From here, you would be pushing away moments of success because you could be thinking that you're just about to fail. The fear pushes you to stay in your comfort zone. So, now that you know some of the dating and relationship patterns, as well as some sabotaging behaviors, hopefully you're able to see areas that have affected you in the past or even maybe right now. Figuring out your dominant self sabotaging behavior is critical when it comes to how you want to show up in your relationships. You can find out your dominant self sabotaging behavior by taking my quiz, What's Sabotaging Your Love Life? I'm going to leave it in the show notes. My process with my clients definitely starts with discovering your self-sabotaging behavior and how they're, affecting your relationships. It's not a cookie cutter process and it depends on which behavior is really showing up for you. Then we dig into specific areas like boundaries, limiting beliefs, and even your inner critic so you can expose areas of self-growth. Then, by accepting and recognizing these areas, we lean heavily into self love through understanding the why and how you've attracted these past relationships. Taking action towards falling in love with yourself will allow you to discover what you truly want in a healthy relationship and a partner, which we will work through during the entire coaching process. We will also determine how you're going to implement what you've learned in these sessions so you can apply them to your love life. If you're a woman who is tired of being in these dating patterns and experiencing sabotaging behaviors that leave you to a dead end in your relationships, apply for one on one coaching. You can do this by heading to my website or finding the link in the episode notes, either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Well, lady, I hope you have a wonderful day and I will chat with you soon. Can't stop settling? Sign up to receive daily words of wisdom. I call them Lady Love Lessons. They're for ambitious women like yourself who are tired of hearing they're too much or that they're not enough. It'll help give you the tough love and motivation to choose yourself first. All you have to do is go to my website, reinventingthearena.com, and scroll to the bottom of the homepage to sign up. I'll see you in your inbox.